My name is Bernard Banta from Nairobi, Kenya. That's my Twitter handle. If you are tweeting, you can mention me. But I was thinking, Twitter has changed the name to X, right? So we used to say tweeting. So now that the company is called X, what do people say? Have you thought about that? Oh, you say Xing. Okay, so let's continue Xing. I currently work at a company called FinPlus Group. It's a technology company, a software company based in Nairobi, and we build software for financial institutions. We basically help financial institutions focus on their core problem, which is providing banking services to their customer, and we handle the technology for them. So instead of financial institutions, when they are starting or running their company, instead of worrying about hiring software engineers, looking for software from different vendors, you have one vendor maybe providing a mobile application, another one is providing a core banking platform. So they just come to us and we provide everything. So everyone gets to focus on what they are good at. So we focus on the software, which for us, when we are providing to them, is software as a service, white label, so able to customize according to their needs. So we serve customers mostly in Southern, like East Africa, and mostly Southern Africa, and we continue growing slowly. I also run African Ruby community, something we started like 3 years ago, before and after like COVID, around 2019 there. And we have a number of chapters. Some of the chapters are in Nairobi, Kenya. We have a chapter in Uganda, a country in Africa. We have a chapter in Tanzania and Rwanda. And we continue growing. Our goal is to connect the entire Africa and create one big community. So that's our website. If you want to visit there later, please do so. So these are some of the photos for meetups. This year was our first Ruby conference. That was in 2015, and we did a number of conferences since 2015 all the way to 2019 before COVID happened and we were disrupted. So we hope we are planning to have another conference next year. So I'm not sure whether for people who have attended a number of conferences, I'm not sure whether you can recognize some of the people here. So we have people who have from different parts of the world who have attended multiple times. So this here was our conference in 2018 at Ariara University. My life mostly revolves around community because I really believe in bringing people and connecting with people. Also revolves around entrepreneurship, building companies and building teams, and mostly family. But when I'm not doing those things, I like to run. I've participated in a number of marathons. You can see some photos here. I also like motorcycle off-roading, just unwinding and go to mountains and different off-roads and having fun. Also, I like doing metal and wood DIY stuff at home. So that's something I've started recently, and it's so fun building like things for the family and for the kids. If I want to build a scene, I just buy the equipments and I build it for them, which is like really fun, and they get to learn so much. So this is my motorcycle here. These are some of the friends. And I'm not sure how many people here have visited or have been to Africa. Raise your hand if you've been to Africa. I can see like less than 5 people. So then I won't even go to Nairobi. Let me try. How many people have visited Nairobi? Have been to nice. Another one. Wow. So, as I said, I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. Kenya is a country in Africa. And for those who don't know much about it, so in Africa we have more than 52 countries. It's the biggest continent in the world. So Kenya is right here on the eastern side of Africa, and Nairobi is the capital city of it. So if you visit Nairobi, you'll see animals roaming around. You meet with lions. You'll be able to see like giraffes around. But I'm joking. So, but seriously, we have a national park in the city. And it's so big. It's about 117 kilometers square. And Nairobi is the only city in the world with a national park. So within a few minutes, you can go to the national park, do game drives, so zoos, and like do nature walks where you'll be able to see and different animals. And some of the animals are big five. We call them big five animals. So that's elephant, rhino, buffalo, and cheetah, and lion. Yes. So, and like you'll get to see all these animals within a few minutes in the city. And as I said, like you'll see animals roaming around. Sometimes it happens when they break out of the park, but the people responsible are able to take care of that. So these are the photos, and you can see the city behind. Amazing, right? So that's a lion. Yeah, so for those who like this, next time we announce about a Ruby conference, if you want to attend, just run very fast, get your tickets. If you're a speaker, just run very fast. Fill in the RSVP details. If you're a sponsor, run very fast so that you get to experience. And we have many national parks around where you can see some of the biggest wonders of the world, including the wildebeest migrations. So if you don't know much about that, later you can Google and you'll see how amazing it is. So, but I'm not here to talk so much about Nairobi or the different animals in Nairobi. I'm here to talk about breaking barriers, building innovative tech to empower the unbanked. So according to World Bank, in 2022, there are about 1.4 billion adults who are unbanked or financially excluded. These are people who don't have bank accounts. These are people who cannot access financial services. So these are things that like we might take for granted. But it baffles me, like, to know that in a world where we live in, where technology is far ahead, where we have so many problem solvers, we still have 1.4 billion adults who are unbanked. And these are people who are hardest to reach, and they are more likely to be women, poorer, less educated, and they live in remote, rural areas. But just to go back to that number, how big is 1.4? Because sometimes numbers can be just numbers. You have to relate it to something to understand how critical the numbers are. So if you look at X, which was formerly Twitter, it has about 528 million users. The active ones are about 330 million. China has a population of about 1.4 billion, similar to India. And Facebook has about 2.9 billion users. So I'm going through that so that you understand how big 1.4 billion adults, not kids, and adults who are financially excluded. So it's a very important topic because being banked means so much in terms of economy, growth, economy of places, economy of country, and also education. So let's understand more about the challenges these people who are unbanked face. So they have limited access to banking infrastructure. So that means they can't easily access ATMs, they can't easily access bank branches, and many other services around, or even like things like getting access to a relationship manager from the bank or account manager. So these things, they have limited access to them. They're also low income earners. Their digital literacy is very low. They have, so in terms of financial services, they think so basically the transaction fees are very high for them. They can't afford it. They live in remote areas, and it's expensive and very cumbersome. The roads are bad. They can't easily go to the cities or towns to access banking infrastructure or financial services. They also have limited connectivity, and you'll be shocked that some of them or majority of them might not even have 5G connection or 4G or even 3G. So most of them, because they are remote, they might only have access to like connectivity of like 2G, which if you have a smartphone, you can't do much with it, right? And they're also likely to do like informal work. Some of them are small farmers. They do casual jobs. Yeah. So let's look at the mobile phones that they use. So most of them use feature phones. I'll talk more about that. And for those who like don't know much about feature phone, you'll be able to learn more about it. You can't really do much with them. You can't really like develop mobile applications because again, they don't have a strong internet connection. Also, like it might be expensive for them to get data. So this is a feature phone. How many are familiar with it? Raise your hand. Good. For those who are familiar, I'm sure you know about like Nokia 3300, like many years ago. Yeah. And what can you do with a feature phone? You can do a few things, like you can play Nice, nice. You can play snake games. This was my favorite. What other games can you do you remember? Like many years ago about these feature phones. Sorry, invaders. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, 2G. Tiny screen. Huh? Makes sense. Sorry. This is another game. How many remember it? Yeah. So these are some of the games you can play, and they were really good. I remember many years ago. But other things you can do with it, you can do basic things like you can text, you can make phone calls, you can save contacts, and the phone contacts are limited. Imagine your phone book like maxing at 500 contacts. And also you can use USSD. So what is USSD? USSD is unstructured supplementary service data. It's a protocol used by global system mobile communication to exchange text. So this is a protocol being basically used by telecommunication networks. So it's similar to like a terminal, the way you send a text and you get a response back. So that's how USSD works. So this is like an image to illustrate that. And how you initiate a session, you dial a shortcode. It can be *123#. And then that will get to the telecommunication company. And then you have your application, Rails application, or a different backend where the telco will forward that request to you. So that's how it works. And once your backend receives that, you have to respond with a text. So you'll continue exchanging text with the user through the telco. And that text has to be like a maximum of 160 characters. So you can't go above that. So since they have access to this, how do we make use of that? And how do you develop a USSD application for feature phones? So let's look at a very simple application where the customer dials a shortcode. Your backend receives that request, and you respond with this simple text and with like 4 options. So you'll tell them like, thank you for dialing this shortcode. Please select an option below, where one is get more information. The second one is support contacts. Third is request demo. The last one is sales contact. So this is what the user receives, and they have to respond with 1, 2, 3, or 4. Very simple. Your backend will look like this, where if the user input is 1, you can send an SMS with more information about maybe your service. You can also send an SMS with support contacts, or if it's 3, you can log demo request if they wanted a demo. If it's 4, you send an SMS about sales contacts. And you know, users being users, sometimes they might not enter the right thing. They might enter 1 as in ONE. So you can innovate around that, where maybe you can be able to convert that into an actual number. But if they enter anything that you have not programmed for it, you can just simply display an error message back to them, or even create a way for them to be able to navigate back. So this is so simple. You can easily do it with a very short script. But let's look at a complex application, because if you are to develop a banking solution, banking process flows, workflows are very complex. And you want to give them the same experience that maybe we have or you have through a mobile banking application. So as someone who has developed banking solutions for many years, this is how the process flows look like. So each of these is a separate process flow. So think about like how you open an account, how you do credit scoring, how someone applies for a loan. Each of them is like a very complex process flow. So how do you fit all that into a very simple USSD application where you are limited to like 160 characters? So the best way is to use a component-based approach solution. And I'll take you through how it works on a high level. If you want information later, we can chat if you're interested in such applications. So this is how you can structure your database, the component that deals with the USSD logic or the USSD application. So where you have a USSD application, because you might have in your platform, you might have a different number of USSD applications. Under each application, you have a tree, because we want to convert those process flows into a tree. So, and each node of the tree will be represented by the app node. And you can see here, under app node, we'll have the node name, which is unique. So you want to give each node a unique name. You have text. So this is the text that you'll respond with the user to the customer with. And also you have node types. So there are three types of nodes when it comes to USSD, or three types of text that you can display or send to the user. The first one is a prompt, where you prompt them to give you an input. An example is once they dial the shortcode, and maybe if they are going through the registration process, you want them to enter their email address. You'll ask them, thank you for dialing this shortcode. Please enter your email address. So that's one type. The second type is menu, like what we saw. You respond with a menu, and they have to select an option. And the last one is a terminating message, where you don't want any input from them. You want to terminate the session. An example is maybe after they finish the registration process, you want to tell them, thank you for using this service. So, and you terminate the session. You're not expecting any input from the customer. And when you terminate it, that session ends. Unless they dial again, a new session will be initiated. So on this right side, you have customer table, where you have all the information about a customer, if they have registered, because when they dial the shortcode, you want to validate if this is your customer or not. If they are not your customer, do you want to register them? You take them through the registration process. And another thing about USSD is once they dial the shortcode, you always get their phone number. And here, like you can have many columns to store different information according to like how your platform is structured. And also you want to keep track of the session. The moment they dial the shortcode, if it's a new session, you create it. If it's an existing session, you maintain it. If it's a new session, they'll have to start from the top, from the root node. And under the root node, you might have different children, and the children might have children and children, and that's why on the left side we have parent ID. So with this you'll be able to create a very complex tree structure. So the root node will not have a parent ID, and the children node under the root node will have the parent ID of the root node. And for banking, it's very critical. You keep an audit trail. If there's a conflict at any point, you want to be able to troubleshoot easily. And even if you have to go to like a court, you want to prove that the customer followed these steps. So, and that's why here we can see we are creating a junction table, so that as the customer is interacting with the platform, you're also traversing through the tree depending on the workflow they're following. So because this is very dynamic, you also want to avoid hard coding, like the error messages, by putting them as records in the table, so that if, let's say, they enter an invalid input, instead of hard coding that into your code, you can just fetch different error message. And this can be, if you're using a Postgres database, it can be a simple JSON-B column, and you can have key values. The values will be the error messages. And because you have a number of developers, you don't want the tree to be dynamic. You want to be able to track the changes happening in the tree. So it's best that you have in your code a JSON tree like this, so that if a developer commits code and they change, you're able to track that. Because if they're doing that on a web interface, anyone can change and you can lose those changes. So having a tree like this in JSON, like text version, you can create scripts to generate this tree in your database. And when you visualize it, it will be something like this, where you can see there's new client. So a customer has to go, if they are new customers, they have to go through the registration process. You want, for security, maybe to enter their mother maiden name, official email address, maybe primary school name. And once they register, you have to take them through like different options. Maybe applying a loan, checking their loan balance. Maybe they want to know how much they qualify for, so you have to take them through the credit scoring process. And this is like a visualization of a tree where you have like 6 nodes. In your Rails application, on the code side, this will be the structure, where you receive the request from the telco through a controller, an API controller, and you need to have a request receiver. So once you receive that request, it goes to the request receiver, where you identify whether this is a new session or an existing session. If it's a new session, as I said, you start from the root node. If it's an existing session, you have to check where the customer is in that tree. And in each node, if let's say the customer is in app node 22, you'll be able to know how to respond to them because of this structure I was talking about. You know how to respond to them because everything is in the database. And once you are able to identify the session, you have to take the customer to the right node. You can decide in your application that for each app node, you generate a class for it. that is able to take care of the logic. And that's why here we have node processors, and they inherit from a base node processor class. So here you can have generic methods that you can use through different nodes. So think of node processor as a nano service, a very small service that is only concerned with that node, and a node receives, or a nano service receives, an input from the user, where it can maybe come from like a menu they entered, or maybe from a different prompt, and the output is a simple, not more than 160 characters text. The good thing about this, also, when you have many developers, because it can be so complex with like so many process and workflows, when a developer is working on the application, you want them to not worry about the logic like in different app nodes. You want them to only focus on the app nodes that are related to the feature they are working on. So this is how the base processor will look like, where you have like variables that can be accessed in different app nodes. So here you initiate your variables, like you want to maintain the request, you want to capture the session, you want to always in different nodes, or throughout the application, you want to keep track of the current node they are in. You want to always have their phone number, client, user input, and app. And this is what now will be implemented across different app nodes. And you can decide to have more methods that can be inherited across different app nodes. And this is how the app node will look like. Very simple. And here, the developer will only focus on this part to only process the input the customer has entered, and to respond with a simple 160 characters text. So what more can you do with USSD? You can develop a web browsers using USSD. So because these customers have low-end smartphones, if at any point you're going to develop a mobile application, the mobile application cannot use internet. So, but how do you send information across through that phone? So you can connect to USSD. So it's like how you have a mobile application trigger a phone call. So you can trigger USSD request in the background of that phone. You can also create mobile application the same way you can create a web browser. So if you want to learn more about this, we can talk later. So let's zoom out. Let's take a few steps back, and I want us to, after this talk, to think about a few questions. Maybe two questions. One is, do we really get swayed by new tech tools or technologies before we fully explore the full potential of existing simple tech tools? So tech tools can be like programming languages, it can be libraries, and so on, because sometimes maybe we might jump in too early and we have not fully explored the potential of whatever languages or libraries we're using. Another question I'd like us to think about is, what other problems can we solve using USSD? I said 2 questions. Maybe let's add one more. Are there other real problems being experienced or affecting millions of people, or even billions of people across the world? Other than Unbanked, are there other real problems that us as problem solvers we can solve? Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention.